Tomorrow night we'll learn at 6:30.
Okay.
By the way, Shabbos starts in Las Vegas at 4:10.
Oh
Oh,
my.
here for 28.
Right, and is
Okay.
over like 5:10. So Sholosh. So Lema Pligid Rav
Hold on a
Yehuda
second, Ernie. Ernie, when are you coming back?
Sunday afternoon.
Uh-huh. Okay, good you told me.
We're learning
Okay.
Sunday morning? Are we learning Sunday morning?
We're going to learn Sunday morning.
Okay, good.
Lema Pligid Rav Yehuda b'Rav Rav Chia. This is the issue of whether, if you're wearing like a tziltzul cotton around your finger, like a little belt, is that considered an extra garment? So, shiny tziltzul cotton to choshev, because remember it's less than shalosh al shalosh. We said something that's less than 3x3 etzbos is not considered yiter begodim, is not considered extra begodim by the kohen. But perhaps a tziltzul cotton is different, even though it's smaller than 3x3, it's considered chashuv. So maybe Rava would consider that it's one of the big day kahuna. Now, why didn't Rav Yochanan teach us tziltzul cotton? Why did he have to talk about the gemi? I would have certainly known that the gemi is permitted. So the Gemara answers, Milsav Agavorcha Kamashban the Gemi Masi, that this reed that you put around your finger also has medicinal properties. The Mishnah wanted to give us that understanding as well. New Mishnah. Boiskin Melech al Gabi Kevis Bishvil Shelo Yachliku. The Kohanim would have to walk up on the ramp of the Mizbeach to place the limbs of the Korban Olah. And if it was raining, it would be very slippery. So you could sort of scatter salt. First, you'd have to hack it with a hammer to break it up, and then you'd put it on the ramp so that the Kohanim would not slip. That could be done on Shabbos. They had various wells in the Azara, and you could use like a crank or some kind of winch, even though it made noise, to draw water on Shabbos. But we'll see, in the Medina, you would not be allowed to do that. And Ube'er Hakir B'Yontiv, there was another Be'er that was not necessarily in the Migdash, was a little further away, that they could draw even on Yontif. They couldn't do that on Shabbos because it's further away, but we'll have to see what that adds to this Mishnah. Now, this issue that we could break up the salt for the Mizbeach, Ramile Ravika Mipashruna L'Rava. Ravika showed a stira. Tanan, it says in a Mishnah, Boiskin Melech al Gabi Akeves, B'Shvil Shlo Yachliku. You could chop up ice and scatter it on the Mizbeach, on the ramp, but Migdash in Medina low. Only the base of Migdash, not in the Medina. That's our Mishnah. Remini, in another Baraisa says, Chotzer shniskalkala b'meik shamim. If your courtyard got really muddy because of rain, maybe tena maradabaha. Tevin is straw. You could spread it out on the ground, and that's even in the Medina. So how come by Teven you could do it even in the Medina, but by salt you can't? More answer, shiny Teven de lo mevatale. Problem with salt is you don't intend to gather up the salt. You intend to leave the salt where it is, and therefore it's mechzi kabinyan. It looks like you're adding structure to the ramp. Teven, you don't leave there. You're not mevatel the teven to the floor of your courtyard. You're going to gather it up. So therefore, it's not mechzik kabinyan. That's why you'd be allowed to do it, even in Medina.
Salt is makalkel though. It's good at the time, but it doesn't. When it stays, it doesn't bin. It's not like a bin because it's makalkel. You don't leave salt there. It ruins everything. It ruins the grass, ruins the ground, it ruins everything. So it wouldn't. As far as the binyan would be,
Not the Gemara doesn't see the salt as ruining it. It becomes incorporated into the construction of the ramp, and that's considered binyan. You would they do leave it. They did not gather up the salt. They salted it and they left it there, and it gets incorporated.
Salt doesn't makalkel earth or anything else. Elazar can makalkel something else. And it's not makalkel. Salt is never used as a.
No, we see by the way in New Hampshire when it's ice and snow, they go out there and they put salt on it to help scrape the snow, and then it doesn't.
but it ruins the asphalt. It ruins it. I mean, there's no question. It does ruin it. It doesn't enhance it. Okay, I mean, just a question.
Well, it's considered like adding another layer to it, so therefore it would be mechzik binyan.
Yeah.
So hi melech hechi dami. So what Gemara is going to analyze this a little bit more. How did they do the salt? Idim avatla. If in fact they were going to leave it there, they were going to mavatla it to the ramp. So kamoisif binyan. So it's a problem because therefore your intent is to add it, and therefore it's going to be a problem with binyan. And that's a problem because I call bichtav miyad Hashem alai hiskil. They gave us, Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us measurements. It's got to be 28 by 28 amas or this or that. If you're going to add salt, you're going to change the construction. That's a problem. Now, if you're not going to mavatl, let's say you're going to gather the salt. So havi chatzitza. So then you've got something. Remember, the Kohanim would not wear shoes. Their feet had to be in contact with the adama of the base of Mikdash all the time. Otherwise, it was a chatzitza. So if you're going to leave this, if the salt is going to be left as part of the binyan, so then there's no chatzitza. But if it's not, if your intent is not to mevatel it there, but to gather it up, but then it's clearly a chatzitza. So that's a problem. So the Gemara says, it would be a problem, but the Kohen bringing up the limbs of the Ola to the ramp is not considered an avoda. Once you do Zrika Saddam on the Karnas HaMizbeach, you have Kapara, that's the avoda. But this is just, this is not part of the Ikar Avodah. And therefore, the fact that there's salt there, and there's a chatzitza, it doesn't passel anything because it's not an integral part of the avodah. For more of a low, what do you mean? I'll show you that it is. Vaksiv, v'kriva kohenes akol v'ktira mizbecha, amar marzu halacha sevrem lakeves. It seems that therefore carrying the limbs to the ramp is part of the avodah. So that means they didn't sprinkle the salt at that point, but later on they had to bring wood up to the top of the mizbeach, and if it was a rainy day, it would be slippery. They would sprinkle salt for that avoda, because that's not an avoda. That could be done. It would not be a chatzitza. Dorash Rava. You have a courtyard that in the rain it got ruined. So he said, maybe tevenu maradebo. You bring straw and you spread it on the ground. What about the following brayso? Means you have to do it with a shinui. You have to do it upside down. Thank you. So you didn't have to do a shinui. It seems from the other Mishnah that you could do it without a shinui. So Hadar Ukim Rava Amoira Alevidar. So Rava appointed a translator. The word Amoira refers to a maturgaman, a translator. And he publicly apologized. Dvorim Shamarti Lifnechem Tosen biyadi. That which I said to you before was a mistake. Baram kachan u'mishum abelazar u'chshumarada ein arada lo b'sav lo b'kupa lo b'shulei kupa. You have to do it with a shinui. And that which I said before in the Baraisa that seemed to imply that you could do it anyway was not correct. So you see the godless of Talmidei Chachamim that when they're wrong, they admit that they're wrong and they do it publicly. Then the Mishnah said, Mimalim Ibor Gola, that they drew water from this be'er that was in the Azara. Ula Ikla Be Rav Menashe. Ula visited Rav Menashe on Shabbos. Also, Gavra Torah Above, a certain person came, knocked on the door. Amar Manhai, who's there? Lischel Gufe de Kamachal the Mechalei L'Shabta. Now, the guy knocked. By knocking, he must have used a knocker, and it made noise. And Ula said that you cannot make any sound on Shabbos. And by making a sound on Shabbos, he's an Avarian. Amar le Rabba, lo yosra lekol shel shir. If you produce a sound, as long as it's not a musical sound, that's okay. If you make a sound that's musical, that would be prohibited on Shabbos, but not just a noise. So that's the sheet of Rabbah. The Gemara is going to spend some time now trying to hack Rabbah. Eis ve'abai. Ma'alin b'diufi. Diufi from the word duo. They would take two tubes. They would transfer wine from one barrel to another using hydraulic pressure. You can do that on Shabbos. Umatifin miyarik l'choyle b'Shabbos. They had some mechanism where they dripped water for a chola. We'll see in a minute what that was for. However, and it made a noise. L'choyle in labori lo means you could do it for someone who's sick, but not a well person because it made a noise. Nahechi dami. What kind of noise? Lav de nom. The choila was sleeping. The koboy lasir that you had to give him medicine, so you had to wake him up. So you made a loud noise, and this is not having to do with shear. It's not a music of shear, and therefore any kind of noise that you make, shmamina oilide kala aser, that if you produce a noise on Shabbos, it's prohibited. The Gemara says lo tier v'koboy name. The choila was awake, and we wanted to produce a melodic kind of noise, like if a person hears like water flowing, it sometimes makes people fall asleep, and therefore the mishtamaki call it the zamzumi. It was zamzumi are like bells, so they were trying to make a musical sound, and in a chanami that's why it's prohibited. But in a chanami, like Rabbah said, if you make a sound that's not musical, that doesn't produce shear, then it would be permitted. Esvei, Abaya continues to ask questions. You have a collection of fruit, and you're the birds are attacking the fruit. Or love of the you have pumpkins that are going to be devoured by animals. You can watch them on Shabbos. Don't clap your hands. Don't hit your body. Make noise. People would like dance. So with the noise that their feet made, it would scare the animals away. Now, why can't you do these on Shabbos? My timer, it's because they made a sound, and this is not a musical sound. It's not shel shear. Yet you see from this brisa that it's also forbidden. No, there it's not forbidden because of making a noise. It's forbidden because you might pick up a stone and throw it at the animal, and the stone might end up in the Rishus Harabim, and that's the gzeira. So another kasha, Adam Ravina Marav. Noshim amesachkois begoizim. Women would play some game with walnuts. Maybe they would roll them like marbles. And it says women were forbidden to do this on Shabbos. My time, huh? Lavdika moilid kolo choloilid kolo, so that when the walnuts would hit each other, they would make noise. And that's why they're prohibited. So again, it's a kashan rabba. Versus low. Dilma osi lashri gumos. You wanted these nuts to roll well, and we're concerned that they're going to smooth out the ground. And by being mashri gumos, it's also a told of binyan. That's why they prohibited doing this. And I'll prove it to you. Dilo tema'achi adam Rav Yehuda nashim mesachos b'tapuchim aser. They also used to play some game with apples. And apples, when you bang them together, don't make noise, right? There's no nose there. It has to do, since they wanted the apples to roll. I don't know what the game was. Did the apples roll farther than each other or whatever? But that's the reason why it was prohibited, not because of the kol. Okay, we still continue to ask kashas on Rabbah. It's not. From our Mishnah, they could use the winch and draw up water on Shabbos. However, b'mikdash in b'medina lo, they only permitted the use in the mikdash, not in the Medina. My time, isn't it? Lav mishum dalila kol of aser. As you crank this, you're making a noise, and that's why it's forbidden. So it's a kashan rabbah versus lo. Gzer shemim alem leginos l'churba. So if they use this, it had nothing to do with making a noise. We were concerned that you would draw water to water plants on Shabbos, which is not allowed to be done on Shabbos. Amema permitted people to use a winch, like a galgal, to draw up water. Amar, my time it goes Rabbanon, because he said, why the Chachamim aser to do it is because Shamay Malan Leginos Chorbaso. We're concerned that he's going to use it to water his plants. But Hacha in Mechuzah, there are no ruins where people planted, and there's no gardens, and therefore there's no reason to goizer here. Even the kachaza, the katorba kitna, but they did in Mechuzah use water to soak flax, so he was concerned as well that they might do that on Shabbos. Also, he prohibited that as well. Then, umi be'er hakir. The Mishnah said you could draw from this other be'er for yontif. My be'er hakir. Amr Shmuel, bor shikra ledvarim b'tirua. That they initially, when they came from Bavel, there was a whole discussion. Could they use this well? Not. Eventually, they permitted it. So that's why it's called bor shehikir. Meisvei lokal abar sakiro sitiru elzu bilvod. That which they discussed, all these bears, they weren't matter all of them except this one. Now, if you're going to say that the reason why it was called heker is because they discussed about it. So my zubulvad. So it apparently wasn't. It was only this well that was discussed. It was a natural spring, and kakir beer. And hakir means to flow naturally. So the be'er hakir, it doesn't refer to this issue of they were matir, but rather because of the way it flowed. Gufa, local aboris hakir sitiru, elazu bilvad. All the free-flowing wells were not matir, except this one. When the exiles came up from Bavel, that's where they encamped. Uneviim shebeneim itir le, the Neviim permitted them to use it. Lo Neviim shebeneim wasn't the Neviim ela minig avois bideim. They were following minig avois. Was the Chazal that were there that established the minig. Mishnah. Sheret shenimtza b'migdash. So we know there's shmona shrotzim. There are 8 kinds of varmints that their corpse convey tumah as an avatuma. An avatuma will convey tumah to Adam and Kalim. And and also and if the sheretz conveys tumah, the thing that it was conveyed tumah to becomes a rishon. A rishon can convey tumah further to Adam and Kalim. No, cannot get tumah further, but a rishon can be metame ochel and mashkim to become a sheni. So with that understanding, sheretz shenimtza b'migdash. Let's say they found a sheretz in the base of Migdash. Kohen motzia b'em yano. The Kohen would take like his belt, and he would lift it. He wouldn't touch it directly because that would be metame him. This would only be metame his begodim. So the beged becomes a rishon. Now he does not become tame from a rishon. So that's why they would lift it with their beged. Now, although he is spreading tumma, because now there's something else that became tumma, which is the belt. However, there's something that overrides the fact, shalol l'shahosas tumma. They don't want the tumma to be in the base of Mikdash for long. You want to get it rid. What is more important, to get rid of the tumma quickly, or to metame something, even though you have to, in the process of getting rid of it, you got to do something else. So Rav Yochanan ben Broika held that it's better to metame something else, but get the sheretz out of there. Div Rav Yochanan ben Broika. Rav Yehuda Omer, no. Even though it might take longer to find 2 wooden pieces of sticks, that wood is not makabel tumah. So go look for 2 pieces of sticks, even though it's going to delay removing the sheretz from the base of Migdash. We'd rather delay, but not allow something else to become tummy, right? He's so that's the debate between Rav Yochanan ben Broika and Rav Yehuda. And a sheretz that is tamei also has a din of muktzah on Shabbos. So muktzah we know is rabbinic, and we say ein shvutz b'migdash. So we can understand that this issue of muktzah could be lifted, but it depended on where they found the sheretz. Now, of course, when it was not Shabbos, you'd get rid of it no matter what, because there's no Indian of muktzah. But on Shabbos, the issue of muktzah depended. Meichan motzino so. So mina heichal, mina ulam, umina ulam lamizbeach. The Rav Shimon ben Nanas. Rav Shimon ben Nanas says only from the heichal itself, meaning kodesh kodoshim and kodesh, and in the ulam, which was the big sort of entry hall that led into the heichal, and in the space between the ulam and the mizbeach. Rabbi Akiva Omer, he said no. It's any place, any place in the Azara, where if a person was tamei and you walked into the base of Migdash, and b'mezid you would get kores, and b'shogeg you'd have to bring a chatas. Misham motzino, so from that location you would move the sheretz. Now, let's say, according to Rav Shimon ben Nanas, the sheretz was found in an area that you're not allowed to move it from there because it's muktzah. For example, let's say it's in the other area of the Azara, not bein ha'ulam lamizbeach. What would they do? Shar kol ha'makomois They would cover it with a bowl, and at the end of Shabbos they would remove it. Reb Shimon Oimer, when the Chachamim matired you something, they didn't matter. It was yours anyways. When they mattered, for example, to perform various avodos in the Beis Hamikdash, really you could have done it midoraisa. They were only forbidden midrabanon. So that which they gave it back to you, you had the right to do it anyways. So the Gemara, what is this doing here? It seems to be unrelated to anything we've been talking about. The Gemara will explain what that's all about. Amrav Tavi Bar Kista Amar Shmuel. Machnis Tmei Sheretz L'Mikdash Chayiv. Let's say you bring a sheretz into the Beis Hamikdash. So you're chayiv. So you're chayiv to bring a chatas if you did it b'shogeg. Did it b'mezid, you would get kores. You bring something, a kli, that was metame by a sheretz, right? Sheretz is an avatuma. It touched the kli becomes a rishon. You bring the rishon kli in, then you have to bring a chatas. But listen to this, gentlemen. Sheretz atzmo potter. If you bring the sheretz, which is an avatuma, into the Beis Hamikdash, you don't bring a chatas. Strange. My timer, Omar because it's a pasuk. It says, Mizachar ad nekeva tishalechu. It says, you shall chase out of the Beis Hamikdash man or woman who is tamei. Meaning, not only you have to chase them out, they can't enter. Now, why did the Torah use the word man or woman? It's to teach me, Mishi yesh lo tahar b'mikvah. Because a man or a woman who become tamei can be matar themselves in a mikvah. So only something that can receive tahar in a mikvah is there this inyan of chasing out of the Beis Hamikdash. Yotza sheretz she'ein lo tahara. A sheretz, you can't put in a mikvah to be matarit. A sheretz cannot be matar. So by bringing a sheretz in, you don't have this lav of mizachar ad nekeva tishalechu. So lema Messiah, this statement of Shmuel, the Gemara is going to bring support. It says mizachar ad nekeva tishalechu prat l'chli cheres. So a kli cheres, if you brought that a earthenware kli into the Beis Hamikdash, also you would be potter. Div Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So from these words, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Gemara wants to bring a right because a kli cheres l'chor also, you can't matar a kli cheres in a mikveh. You got to break a kli cheres to become tamei. My time allow me to less late to arba mikveh. Now, why did Rabbi Yossi Aglili say that there's no din of keeping out of the Beis Hamikdash a kli cheres? Isn't it because there's no tahar b'mikveh? What's this low? That's not Rabbi Yossi Aglili din is not. That doesn't prove our case. There's a different reason why Rabbi Yossi Aglili says that a kli cheres is not involved. Mishnasa avatuma. Yotza kli cheres she'eino nasa avatuma. A kli cheres can never become an avatuma. Other kelim can. Other kelim can become like a metal kli. For example, if a zav sat on it, tumas medris, says Rashi. But you can a kli cheres, if a zav sits on it, can never become an avatuma. So it has nothing to do with tahara b'mikvah. Okay. So the Gemara though sees in our Mishnah the machlokas between Rav Yochanan and Rav Yehuda perhaps as a support to Shmuel. Lema kitanoi. Maybe Shmuel holds like one of the tanoim that we mentioned. Sheretz shenimtza b'mikdash. You have a sheretz in the Beis Hamikdash. We say kohen motzio be'amyeno. Kohen takes it out in his belt, even though it adds tumah. We'd rather get it out of there. Shalol l'shas atumya. We don't want to keep the sheretz there for too long. Rabbi Yochanan Broik. Rabbi Yehuda b'tzvas shel eis motzio. You can let the sheretz sit there longer until you find two pieces of sticks wooden sticks that are not metkabel tumah. Shalol larabos is a tumah because we don't want to add tumah. Now, my love, what's the machlokes? Maybe b'hakam iflagi. The mandam shaloi lishos. Rabbi Yochanan Baruch that said, you know what? Be metame your belt rather than leave the sherets there longer. Why? Because he thinks hamachne sherets lemigdash chayiv. He holds not like Shmuel that you're not allowed to bring a sherets into the base of Mikdash. It doesn't learn this drasha of, anything that doesn't have tahar b'mikvah. No, but umanda omer shalol rabois, right? Rabbi Yehuda, who said, let the sherets sit there while you run around and try to find a piece of wood. Obviously, he holds so Shmuel is holding like him. The Gemara says no. Shmuel could have nothing to do with this machlokas. Really cool machayev. Maybe everyone will hold that if you bring a sheretz into the base of Mikdash, you'd be chayev achatas. And v'hacham iflagi. But they're arguing about something else. No. Delaying tumah to be removed is worse. And the other person holds spreading tumah to other items is worse. But has nothing. But they would both hold that you're not allowed to bring a sheretz to the base of Mikdash. Okay. Our Mishnah goes on at the end of the Mishnah to talk about different locations in the base of Mikdash where you remove the sheretz. So the Gemara wants to say maybe alakani tanoi. There was also machlokes tanoim between Rav Shimon ben Nanes, Rav Akiva. Maybe Shmuel relates to that. This not. The Mishnah said meichan matzino so. Where, from what location in the base of Mikdash was the sheretz removed? Because we have a problem of muktzah. But muktzah wasn't just overridden no matter what. It depended where it was found. Now, why does Rabbi Akiva say it's everywhere in the Azara, and Rav Shimon ben Nanas limited it to very holy places like the Heichal, the Ulam, and Bein Ulam Lamizbeach? Maybe my lava hakamiflagi. Demanda Amar me Azara lo means Rav Shimon ben Nanas said muktzah is enforced in the remaining Azara. Why? Because maybe he holds Ksavra Machnis Shetz L'Migdash Potter, because he holds that you're allowed to bring a sheretz, or not allowed, but you don't bring a chatas if you bring a sheretz, and therefore there's no Torah dika chiyuv to remove it, and therefore Chazal did not lift the rabbinic isser of muktzah in that location. Umanda Amar Rav Akiva, who held Mikula Zara, Ksavra Chayiv. Maybe he would say that to bring a sheretz in the Mikdash, you're Chayiv Achatas. So it's a biblical prohibition to leave it there. And that's why you would override Muktzah. So the Gemara wants to say that perhaps Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara is going to reject this as well. We'll see. That perhaps it's not related to Shmuel's conduct. And we'll pick this up tomorrow night at 6:30 after Motzei Shabbos. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody.
Have a good Shabbos.
How is it there,
Great
Ernie?
Shabbos, Ernie.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's 70 degrees.
You went to
blue
the
sky.
canyon? Did you
We're
go
right.
on